Hey, you guys, this is Lisa Nicole Alexander with a deeper look into domestic violence. And I am so excited. I'm so excited, you guys. I have Cynthia Tamlyn. She is a certified clinical aromatherapist, and she's also a certified mental health integrative medicine practitioner. You guys, we chit chat a little bit before, and I am just, we had to stop because I'm just so excited to start getting to talk to her, for her to share her heart with you guys, her experience. And, she's connected to this. This is personal for her, and that's what I really love about this. So welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. So beforehand, we were like chit-chatting about, she's a survivor, and she's an aromatherapist. This is her heart. So I feel like I'm rambling, but it doesn't really matter. Please tell us about your journey to becoming what you're doing right now as an aromatherapist and a certified practitioner.
Well, you can find my entire bio on my website. I'll give you the Reader Digest version. I'm old enough to know what a Reader Digest version is. So I am a certified clinical aromatherapist, and what that means is I have achieved more than 400 hours of industry-recognized and approved training in the science, the pharmacokinetics, and the pharmacodynamics, of using essential oils. And doing so for therapeutic purposes. I came by this field by accident. I'm the most unlikely aromatherapist because with my PTSD, I'm sensitive and defensive. But I parent a child with post-traumatic stress, and they were having a lot of issues related to their PTSD from their time in an international orphanage. And I was grasping at straws. I was like, try anything and everything until I find what works. And I empowered my child with each thing we tried. Tell me if this helps. If it does, great. If not, we'll move on. And when we tried essential oils, he was like, oh, where's my oils? I need my oils.
Wow.
And it was like 2 hours after he had first been exposed to oils. And I was like, really?
Wow.
Okay. So he was the first one in the family that was sold on them.
Wow, that's so neat.
And I had been using them under the auspices of my naturopath, but I hadn't heard the term essential oils until the network marketing companies started really saturating the market with that term. So I don't really like that term. I think it's a misnomer because people have survived millennia without them.
Right.
But, volatile aromatic oils, which is scientifically what they are, doesn't sell so well.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So they have to change the name to make it sell. That's so neat. I mean, of course, I'm going to interrupt you throughout, but I love how you said you empowered your child through each stage to figure out what worked. And I just love that you allowed your child to decide what worked for them. I thought that was great.
Nobody else, I don't know what's going on in their head. I mean, I see their behavior, and I believe behavior is communication.
Right.
But as a child survivor myself, I recognize that the best thing you can do for a survivor is give them control.
Yeah, that's
good. And
so
that's how I coach when I'm working with parents for my pediatric clients. It's like, give them control. Let them know it's okay if they don't see a benefit to this or that we can tweak it, we can start over, whatever we need to do. But it's about empowering them to take back their voice, because that's usually the first thing that's stolen when somebody has been traumatized in some form or fashion by someone they trusted.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you said that. You're giving them back control. Like you said, their voice is gone, their control is gone.
Right.
And I just love, and even for a child, I think that we don't give children enough credit. And I think you really just summed it up in a nutshell just now. They have their own mind. You don't know what they're thinking, So that was real. I'm guilty of it, that you think you know what's best for your child. And wait a minute, they have their own thoughts, and feelings too.
Right. And their own personalities and their own way of interpreting things.
Yeah, that was really good. I love it. I just learned it. I'm taking my notes. So you shared that you were a survivor. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Depends on how far back you want to go. I mean, there's so many gaps in my memory from my childhood. My first clear memory that doesn't have a break in it, I'm probably in junior high. My earliest memory, I was maybe 2, I was potty training age, whatever age that was for me. And I went to the table, I'm guessing in some kind of play dress because I wasn't wearing any underwear. And I got a spanking because I came to the table without any underwear on.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't know then that I know now
Mm-hmm.
is that my just genetic sperm donor, because to me, parenting terms are terms of endearment, and this person doesn't
Okay.
deserve that term,
Mm-hmm. Fair. Yeah.
hasn't earned it. They were aroused by that. And so I was punished because of what they were experiencing.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
And so it goes on, you know, if you're familiar with ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experience Studies,
Mm-hmm.
my ACEs score is a 7 if you
Okay.
just count a strict 1 to 10. If you count different perpetrators, I cross over the 10 threshold.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have the health effects of having unaddressed adverse childhood experiences
Okay.
that, you know, I didn't know what it was to feel safe until I'd been married 15 years.
Oh.
But I never dreamed I'd get married because as a child, I was told I'm fat and lazy and no man's ever going to want me. And I'm like, okay, well, if all men are like you, I don't want them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Wow.
I'm a retired nanny. And I had
Mm-hmm.
one family in 20 years of nannying that
Wow.
showed me what a healthy relationship looked like.
Wow. What a gift.
And I worked for them 5 years. And after that, I was like, okay, maybe not all men are scum.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
And
a
that's
nice
what
gift, though.
it was. They're still
Mm-hmm.
huge. They are my children's godparents.
Oh, that's
They're,
awesome.
you know, I moved across the country with them.
Wow.
They are my first chosen family.
Wow. I love that. You weren't born into one, but you were gifted one. And I think
I
that was, yeah.
was.
And I know that you shared that you experienced PTSD. So you're
Yes.
right now. And have you found that aromatherapy has helped you with that for yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, because of the way the constituents, I'll try not to geek out. I have a lot of this information in blog post on my website.
Okay.
And I do tend to geek out here, so interrupt if I start going down the geek trail. But, you know, Dr. Candace Pert discovered the opioid receptor more than 30 years ago. And in her book, The Molecules of Emotion, which is a pivotal book in my life, she talks about how the olfactory system is 1 synapse away from the limbic system of the brain. And I have a brain model here that you can't see the limbic system in because it's in the middle there.
Right.
And if you use your fist as a brain, your limbic system is kind of like right there. It's just really small, the amygdala, the hippocampus, hypothalamus, etc. And when you inhale an essential oil, a synergistic blend, whatever, that travels to that system in 20 seconds.
Wow.
And it is the difference between going into when you're triggered into fight, or freeze, it can pull you back.
Wow.
Because of what we know from trauma research and neuroscience, the neurogenesis of the brain, if you do that on a protocol, like a routine, then you can lay down new mirror neurons because of the neurogenesis properties of the brain, or the ability to regenerate new brain cells from a place where you feel safe because you've calmed the limbic system and you've stopped that cortisol, that rush of stress hormones. And after time, your brain now knows, okay, I don't have to instantly go into, I'm going to hurt somebody to protect myself.
Right.
And so my proudest moment is when my clients graduate, because I'm just one cog in the wheel. You know, I've worked with clients who haven't been able to leave the house. They've been so traumatized.
Wow. Okay.
And then when they graduate to the next level, when they're, for that particular client, when they're able to leave the house, or when they were able to leave the house, and then they were able to go into different modalities of therapy to further address the depth of their PTSD.
That is just powerful. I mean, it's amazing. It's news to me. I've never heard it before. And just to know that within 20 seconds, instead of the fight, and freeze, you're actually able to calm yourself. And then you said using it over and over really makes a difference.
And the lifespan of the effect, you know, it's shorter for inhalation than for topical use. You know, I was talking to a client today, and I've blended a topical blend for them and an inhaler blend for them.
Okay.
And, you know, I start out with disposable inhalers, and then we move to refillable inhalers as needed. But, you know, depending on where they're at, and especially when I'm working with pediatric clients or people who are in a really professional office setting where, you know, coworkers, there's like that office politics stuff.
Yeah.
The inhalers are great because they're the only person smelling them.
Okay.
You know, so and they can use them every 30 minutes if they need to, but they usually get about 2 hours worth of effect off of it.
Okay.
And the topical blend, yeah, other people may or may not be able to smell it depending on how close people get in your space. But I call that the sustained release formula because it's going through the bloodstream and taking longer to go into effect, but then you get a little longer lasting effect.
Okay, and you prescribe those both at the same time? You give them both at the same time?
They can be used in conjunction.
Okay.
And it really depends on the client. I mean, that's part of what I do is my intake is extensive. I am a nerd at heart, but I made it really easy because I did it as a Google form where there could be a lot of check boxes because I don't need to know the details of how somebody was traumatized. That can be very triggering for them.
It can, yeah.
And it can lead to secondary trauma for me.
Right.
But they can check off a box, oh, I've emotional abuse or this abuse or that abuse or whatever. And then with that and the other pieces, and I do a full systemic, you know, respiratory, everything. I'm looking at diet, I'm looking at the big picture here.
Wow.
And I'm integrating what I know from trauma research. And my favorite author for trauma is Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. His book, The Body Keeps the Score, it literally changed my life.
Wow.
It took me 6 months to read it because it really brought things up in me that I thought I was in touch with all my trauma.
What's the name of it?
The Body Keeps the Score.
Wow. Okay.
By Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And he's been researching trauma since Vietnam.
Okay. And
so, you know, it's just so great to have something that really brings fields together in a safe and supportive way, because I don't want any of my clients, but particularly my pediatric clients, to feel like they're broken and we're trying to fix them.
That's good.
You know, they're survivors, they're warriors.
Yeah.
And my goal is just to give them their voice and empower them to take back their lives so they have healthier interpersonal relationships and healthier relationships with themselves.
Okay. Well, and how do you know what oils to give? Are they specific to the people or specific to the trauma, or?
It's an individualized thing. I work, you know, when I first started, I was like, oh, I got to have this, I got to have that, I got to have this. And I had like over 100 oils, which is not environmentally sustainable.
Okay.
And as I became more experienced in all of my case studies through my education, I've worked with PTSD warriors, and you know, I really narrowed it down to where there's a couple of dozen. There's some, but everybody's different because you know, every year I volunteer at our local suicide prevention walk because I'm a sibling survivor of suicide. That's one of my trauma pieces. And you know, I always blend 2 blends, and I let people make an inhaler that they can take with them.
Wow.
And everybody who has, if you've met one survivor, you've met one survivor. Everybody's story is different, and how they process is different, even if they're twins.
I'm sorry. I just love what you just said. You know, people try to put survivors in a box. You said, if you've met one survivor, and I didn't know what you were going to say next, but you said, you've met one survivor. Every person is different. Their trauma is different. I love it. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, how I process things is going to be different from anybody else who's maybe had similar experiences, but you know, personality comes into play there, and the environment that was going on and the support that they've received before or since. you
So
know?
good. Yeah, that's so good. I think even for people who work in advocacy and leadership, and they need to understand you cannot put everybody together. You can't. That individual survivor deserves their attention, the help. It's not like every other. And I think that our government, not I don't say our government, like our worlds, our court systems and everything, they just survivors together. They put everybody together, and it's not. And we're missing it.
Right. And a lot of times, especially when you're working with children or you're talking about children who've experienced trauma, they're labeled as problematic children rather than
Yeah,
seeing that
yeah.
behavior as a cry for help.
Right.
And that's the part that frustrates me so much, because I fully credit 3 teachers I had in elementary school for me being alive today.
Wow.
This is where I get emotional,
Yeah.
because when I look back at my lifespan, I'm 52. The first 3 people to show me unconditional love were elementary school teachers.
Wow.
And so I have a Facebook group for teachers. It's called Teaching Outside the Box, Tips and Tools for the Trauma Students, for teachers who are open to learning how they can better serve their students. Because statistically speaking, something like 80% of the population has had at least one adverse childhood experience.
Wow.
And 67% of those people have over 4.
Wow.
And the more,
67?
I'm sorry?
67, you said?
67%
Wow.
of the 80% have had 4 or more. And the more adverse childhood experience a person has had, the greater the impact on their long-term health, higher risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes,
Wow.
etc.
Yeah.
That's what made me so passionate about what I do, because I don't care if I work on a sliding scale. I'm not motivated by money. Thank God my husband is able to take care of that part of the equation. But I'm really looking at this as my mission to, help children and women survivors to regain that sense of felt safety, that they don't have to wait till sometime in the 10, 20. I mean, I was almost 50 years old before I knew what it was to feel safe. I mean, I spent the first 50 years of my life looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to fall.
Wow.
That's not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
And I
that's
can
why
imagine how that has effects on the body, like you said, too, on the physical body. Yeah.
On the physical body, on the brain. I have adult onset idiopathic epilepsy.
Wow.
We don't know why.
Yeah.
And what I know about trauma and what I know about neuroscience, I find it really interesting that I only have seizures every other year and in the fall. So I know something happened in my pre-verbal, pre-memory stage in the fall of an odd year. And that's my body way of trying to cope with it, is it goes into that state.
Yeah.
In that time frame. And if I have a stress peak, then it's fascinating to me. It's terrifying.
I mean,
it's fascinating.
I think you hit it nail on the head. It's fascinating and terrifying. Even the name of the book that you just talked about, The Body Keeps the Score. Like, our body remembers the different traumas and things that we've been through, even though our mind may not.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely is a book to put on the list for sure. Going back to working with pediatric patients and things like that, I think you said earlier that behavior is communication. And I just thought that was just so good. And specifically that you talk to teachers and have a group for teachers about that, because you said that 3 teachers are the reason you're here today. Were they able to see that your behavior, was you communicating something? Is that why?
The first teacher was my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Wells, God bless you wherever you are. My sibling who took their own life in August, 3 weeks before my 8th birthday. And I started school late that year. And I grew up in Texas. I don't say I was raised, because I pretty much raised myself. I was a latchkey kindergartner. Miss Wells really took me under her wing and showed me, I would get a hug every morning. This was in the 70s. So, that's not, it's pretty much frowned upon these days, with abuse being the problem that it is. But Miss Wells then passed me on to Miss Riley and Miss Kirkwood, and Miss Riley passed me on to Miss Kirkwood. I get those two confused. I don't remember which one was third and which one was fourth, but I at least remember their names. And what I think as an adult, what I've learned about education is that they were both Teach for America teachers. They were fresh out of college. They were young.
Okay.
And my fourth grade teacher, whether it was, I think it was Miss Riley, she used to read to us 20 minutes a day. We were fourth graders. Who reads out loud to fourth graders? But that gave me an escape, because I developed my love of reading because of Miss Riley.
Wow.
And when things were like chaotic at home, I could check out via a book, and I could go to some fantasy place that, you know, I mean, I used to invent homework. This is how much of a nerd I am. I didn't want to go to bed at 7 o'clock, which is when my sperm donor went to bed. Mm-hmm. So I would invent homework, and I would use 12-year-old encyclopedias and just read about different countries and cultures and anything. I would just grab a book at random. And if anybody was checking up on, Auntie, I'm writing a report. I just didn't want to go to bed at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I just was curious, and you know, and I wanted to know there was more than this little box of despair that I was growing up in.
Wow, I love that. You know, if there's any teachers listening, I just think this story is so powerful, that as a young girl, it really changed her life, saved her life, literally, by that hug in the morning. She's like, if I wasn't going to get it at home, I got it at school. And you also talked about even reading, you like, who's reading to fourth graders? But that reading allowed you to escape. I just think that if you're listening, just understand that you're making a huge difference. And I think that we should just talk so much more about that to teachers and realize, we know you're underpaid and overworked.
Yes.
But the lives that you are saving just each and every day is just, it's big.
And the impact that you have, even when you're not aware of it.
Yes.
Because children who have experienced trauma can read body language the way a PhD scientist reads a scientific journal.
Oh my.
I mean, they are off the charts able to read a person's mood, a person's, you know, they can tell when they're genuine or when they're being disingenuine. And, you know, I was just today on an IEP call for one of my clients as a support. My youngest child is hearing impaired, so I've been on the IEP roller coaster for over a dozen years, and I've learned everything the hard way.
But you know it all now. You know it.
I don't know it all. It shocks me every time I go to a meeting. Wow. I'm like, how did I not know this before? I mean, I have been through the ringer, but I am a warrior as a survivor. And, you know, I go into IEP meetings, and I've done this. Thank God for Leanne Toohey for giving me this analogy. But I go into meetings, I'm like, have you watched The Blind Side? Because I guarantee you, Leanne Toohey ain't nothing on me.
Wow.
Except that she is licensed to carry guns. So. But, you know, I am a fierce warrior for my child because nobody protected me.
Wow.
And so I am, you know, mama bear, tiger mom, I don't care what you want to call me. Yep. Just know that you will not get between me and my child without me going down first.
Wow, good for you. Wow, that's big. Wow, that's so powerful. So tell us a little bit about what you do with your certified mental health integrative medicine. Because I know you say you're holistic. I don't know if that's similar to what you're, okay.
So back in the day, in like the 1950s, the Fathers Knows Best era, your general practitioner worked as an oversight role. You know, you would go in and he would say, oh, you need to see a cardiologist or whatever. And everybody you saw, he was managing. Okay, so the cardiologist this, so the neurologist needs to know this, or the pulmonologist needs to know that, or whatever. And there's nobody in healthcare really doing that today, except maybe your pharmacist, if you get all your prescriptions filled at one place. So I'm not a licensed doctor. I don't prescribe. I don't diagnose.
Right.
But what I do is when I'm looking at that big picture, I'm going, oh, there's a lot of stuff going on in the cardio, in the heart health, or there's a lot of digestive issues. So when I'm talking to my clients, I'll say, okay, I have a nutritionist I can refer you to.
Okay.
I would say, or, I think you need to go in for a sleep study, or, whatever else. I'm giving them ideas because the general public doesn't, they just, what they know about medicine is what they see on TV commercials trying to get you to use this drug or that drug.
Right. It's true.
And so, rather than, and for me, when I experience a physiological symptom, that's my body's way of communicating with me.
Right.
I have over 2,000 food allergies or sensitivities.
Wow.
And most of them identified by listening to my body. Oh, when I eat that, I get heartburn. Well, I don't take an antacid. I quit eating that. My body doesn't like it. Or if I eat that and I get real stuffy and I can't breathe, okay, let's not eat that. And so I'm looking at that's why my intake is the way it is. And that's why when I saw this certification come up, I was like, yeah, that fits with what I'm already doing.
Yeah,
and
that's
it just
good.
gives me a little more knowledge to support my clients.
Yeah. I think so much we just take whatever the doctor gives us. But the cardiologist is not talking to the pulmonologist. The pulmonologist is not talking to I mean, it's everywhere. And I love that you just kind of take the time and look through it and see, hey, wait a minute. Did you know that you're taking this and that may be causing, I mean, really?
Yeah.
We're such a pharmaceutical generation. We just take the pill.
Take the pill, and I call it the minute rice mentality. We want to take a pill or whatever and forget about whatever it is that's causing us the issue we're taking the pill for. And I'm looking at it in a longer, well, how can I avoid taking that pill? Because what are the side effects of that pill? Because I've had clients come to me and they're 8 years old and they're on 8 different medications, and they started out on this one and it had this side effect. So then they added that one and it had this side effect. So then they added that one. And then mom comes to me and she's like, okay, he's on all these medications, but I'm still seeing all these behaviors. I'm not telling anybody to stop taking any medications. That is not my role. I am providing support through aromatics that don't interfere with the medications, which is very critical because they're essential oils that are contraindicated for diabetes, for epilepsy, by age, for heart disease. I mean, there are essential oils that can lower your heart rate or increase your heart rate. So if you have tachycardia, which is an elevated heart rate, you don't want to use those oils that are contraindicated. And there are oils that interfere with the diabetes medications. So that's
who would have known that? Like I didn't even know that. I had no idea.
Don't, because they're told they're natural and they're safe. Well, arsenic is natural. It's in apple seeds, but we don't typically eat apple seeds because we know there's arsenic in there, and rattlesnake bites. There are a lot of natural things that aren't safe, or that are safe if you use them appropriately. And so that's where I come in. I try to educate my clients and the general public. I'm a representative for the Alliance of International Aromatherapists, and I host free educational classes in my region. And, I'm about, sharing my geekiness.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you are. I know the brain is behind you. And I know we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Can you just give us a little, what is that?
So this is the functional MRI. It's a comparison of 2 brains.
Okay.
The one on this side with all the bright colors, that red represents activity.
Okay.
The brain on this side that's not quite so colorful, that brain has experienced trauma. And trauma changes the wiring of the brain. It shuts down, so if your neurons are supposed to go this way, when you experience trauma, one neuron may go this way and the other may go this way.
Okay.
And so you see those dark spots because things aren't firing together.
Wow.
And so that's my goal in working with clients, is to use the neuroplasticity of the brain to get the traumatized brain to look more like the normal brain.
I mean, and there's a difference. There's a significant difference in it.
It's a very significant difference. And this is exactly why many children who have experienced trauma are often misdiagnosed as being on the spectrum, because the behaviors they exhibit often mimic spectrum behaviors as antisocial or, other things. And it's really the trauma. Their just brain is hijacked and offline.
And you said that there's a way with the neuroplasticity to get it back to a regular functioning brain? Is that through the aromatherapy that helps as well?
It's one piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
I mean, I take a 48-hour food intake with my clients because I want to see what they're eating.
Okay.
And I will flat out tell them, okay, your child is eating, you know, what I call fake foods, you know, anything you find on the typical grocery store shelf that's good for up to 10 years, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty
the
bad.
best way to improve the neurochemistry of the brain is through nutrient-dense food.
Okay. Okay.
And so I can work with clients who are, you know, eating the standard American diet, and they're not going to see the same results as people who cook a meal from scratch. That can be really simple. Throw some meat in the oven or whatever if you eat meat, and you know, a frozen veg. I love buying frozen organic veggies because then they never go to waste.
Okay.
And I just have to open the bag and put it in simmer or whatever I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, you know, so it's really simple. As with all of our allergies, I mean, I have 28 food sensitivities and allergies, and I have 3 other family members in the house, and some of them overlap and some of them are totally different. But altogether, I'm working around 3 dozen food sensitivities when I make a meal.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. So you probably don't eat out as much even.
We don't.
Okay. Yeah, with that many allergies, you really can't risk it.
Yeah.
Wow. I just love, I feel like I really learned a lot having you on, Cynthia. Like, I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot as a mother. You know, I've learned a lot dealing with people who experience trauma. And I know that you said that we can go to your website. So could you tell us what that website is?
Yes, it's oilisticaromatherapy.com. OILISTIC. It's a play on the holistic part of me. And, you know, you can find my bio there. You can find my services there. I geek out on there.
And do you have the aromatherapy? I know you said you have a Facebook group. Do you have another group?
Yes, I have a Facebook page called Oilistic Aromatherapy, and I have a group on that page as well. And I have Instagram, but I almost never use it.
I'm not too good at that. I'm joining your group first, I'm going to say, because I just feel like there's just so much to learn. I feel like, I know you say you geek out, but honestly, if I could just sit with you and talk for a while, I'd probably be geeking out too, because this is really good content. And I'm really excited that you, took the time to share it with our listeners and with me. So is there anything? Yeah, I love it. Is there anything else you'd like to share when it comes to your experience and what you do, trauma, aromatherapy? And you know, when I first connected with you, I was like, wait, aromatherapy to deal with trauma? Wait, how does that even happen? How do they do that? How does it work? And I just love how you brought it all together, and to know that it can have such a quick, it can really help. That it can, even with children, you know. And so anyway, I asked you a question and I kept talking. So.
Well, you know, the main thing I want to get people to be aware of is there are some significant safety concerns with using essential oils. I mean, there are oils, for example, I don't use any essential oils with children under the age of 5. Okay. Their body cannot handle breaking down. Their livers aren't developed enough to break down the chemical constituents of essential oils. So there is alternatives, which are aromatic waters known as hydrolats. Wow. And that's what I use with my pediatric clients under the age of 5 or who are really, really scent defensive. Okay. And it has because children are younger, the younger you are, the higher your biological ratio of water to lipids, hydro to lipids is. And so those hydrolats are more effective for those younger ages, and they're certainly safer. Okay. And some of them can even be ingested. I mean, I've worked with a 4-year-old for about 2 years. She was 4 when she started working with me, who was born liver compromised. And we used hydrolats. And one of the things I do to help my children, my pediatric clients buy in is, you know, I'm looking at what are their favorite colors, who are their favorite characters. And I name their blend something that they can relate to and buy into. Oh, that's fun. And this little girl liked 2 very polar opposite characters. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? So I went to one of my kids. I'm like, do you know anything about this character? I need to come up with this name. And we ended up calling it Her Freedom to Dream, because
Oh.
in 4 years, she had only slept through the night twice. And so it was a little hydrolat mist, and she ended up calling it her calm down spray. And so when she could feel her anxiety level going up, she would go to the fridge and get her calm down spray, and she would spritz herself. And then she could recenter and move on.
That is so
And she
neat.
graduated, and she's now doing equine therapy. And, you know, it's just, those are my proudest moments. I don't want people to be paying me for the rest of their lives. That's not sustainable. I mean, that doesn't make sense. I want them to graduate and go on and be able to not forget, but to reclaim their voice and say, you know what? What's past is past, and I am who I am, and it shaped me and made me a stronger person. And or, you know, however it's to change their life. But it's hard to find positive in trauma, but you know what I'm trying to say? It's just, it's not coming out very well.
No, I do too. And I think too, especially with domestic violence and the parents, the children who have experienced it and seen it and heard it. A lot of the parents that I talk to, a lot of the moms that I talk to have children who have extreme PTSD or trauma or whatever it is that they're dealing with as a result of it. And I just love how you incorporate the pediatric part of it with the children. And so moms, if you're listening, there is hope for the trauma, you know, and I really like how Cynthia just really listens to what they want. I think that's really big. I was going to ask you too, before we go, do you work with people that aren't in the same state as you? Like, can they?
Yes. I most of my clients are spread across the country.
Yay. Okay.
I don't work outside of the US because customs trying to get things through other countries. But 99% of my clients are spread across the country. And for that reason, I have appointment availability on weekends and early mornings and later in the evenings, just depending on, because I'm on West Coast time.
Okay.
So it just, you know, depends on where everybody is. We can find something that fits for them.
Yay. Listen, if you're listening and your child is dealing with some type of trauma and you're really not sure what to try, give Cynthia a call, reach out to her, find her on Facebook, send her a message. If you're an adult that's dealing with trauma, reach out and see if you're tired of trying this, you're tired of trying this, and you're thinking that this might be the thing for you. And I am just loving this. So thank you for sharing your gift and your knowledge with us. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, Lisa. You know, on a final note, you know, when I started using essential oils, I was told you might have to try a few to find the right one. Well, that cost me over $10,000 because I didn't know what I was doing. People can save a lot of money and time if they work with somebody who's already put in the time and money to get the training.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because everyone also tells, oh, you just need this, you just need that. No. And especially if you're dealing with trauma, you need someone who is specialized in that field. So thank you for that. We appreciate you. Take care, and thank you so much for being here. You guys.
My pleasure. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Or day,
you guys.
whenever you're watching.
Okay, you guys. This was a deeper look into domestic violence with Lisa Nicole Alexander. I really hope that you listen to this, that you enjoy it, that you share it, because I guarantee that someone that you don't needs to hear it. I'll see you next time, okay?